the one thing I know for sure is that all my favorite humans in the world have ADHD.
Mhm.
And I think the beautiful thing is they always show kindness. They always forgive you when I'd like, I'm making a generalization. I really want people to know that I'm going to make some generalizations here and they can decide whether it applies to their situation. But I have noticed this beautiful trait with people with ADHD is that you can stuff up and you can own it and they'll be like, oh yeah, like that's fine. Like we're okay, we're good. They're not holding on to things. And kindness is contagious, as you'd know. And so I have these beautiful families that I work with, and I feel like spending time with them makes me happy. It makes them happy, and we also are kind to each other, and we're encouraging each other to be kind to ourselves, which I think is lovely.
Hello, everybody. I'm Casey Veleza, and I'm one of the co-founders of Anthony's Way, the Road to Kindness. And this is our new podcast channel, The Way Forward, A Kindness Mission. Our topic today is going to be ADHD and motherhood, leading with love and kindness. And I am especially excited to have our guest today, Sharon Collon, who it comes all the way to us from Australia. And she is an award-winning, credentialed, families-trained ADHD coach, consultant, and parenting expert, and founder of the Functional Family, who specializes in providing life-changing support and strategies for families with ADHD. We are so excited to have you, Sharon. Welcome.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm so excited for our chat today.
I'm more excited, I think. So we met each other on your podcast, which was exciting for us. So now we get to talk to you about what you do today. And so obviously, first of all, how did you become an ADHD coach?
So it's a bit of a journey, as I'm sure most coaches go through. I married an incredible man. His name is also Anthony, so I feel very close to you guys. And he has an incredible brain. He is probably to this day, and bearing in mind what I do for a living, the most ADHD person I've ever come across. He's super fast, like very, very hyperactive profile. He has that mode and sleep mode. And I love his brain. Like I find it exciting. I never know what he's gonna do next. I just really fell in love with him because of it. But when I talked to Anthony about growing up with ADHD, his story wasn't full of people falling in love with him for his brain. His story was full of trauma, being isolated. He wasn't allowed in the classroom because he was aggressive. He used to fight his way through school. His mum used to sew his buttons back on his shirt every single day. And he pretty much just used to do odd jobs around the school because he wasn't allowed in the classroom. And this was the 80s and 90s. This is not where we were doing our best work with ADHD, I've got to say. And we went on to have 3 beautiful boys. And very early on, I could pick that they were similar presentations to Anthony, especially my eldest. And I just didn't have the skills to cope with it. To be honest, I didn't like my home life. Everything was dysregulated. We were getting holes punched in the wall. We were on the extreme side of everything. That's where we were sitting. And I used to go out and do the grocery shopping, and I'd have to physically, I'd almost have a panic attack when I was walking back into my house, opening that door. And I knew what was waiting on the other side of for me, and it wasn't great. And so I knew that we didn't have the skills to cope. And I began to think maybe I didn't have the skills to be a mum at all, because there was so much that I felt like we were failing at. And so I started researching ADHD. I knew what that tipping point was I got sick. I was doing a lot of everyone's executive function for them. And my body developed an autoimmune condition, which is called psoriatic arthritis, where it attacks healthy tissue. So it'll attack any joint, my eyes, all sorts of things. And I was looking down the barrel of getting my mobility taken away. And I was like, oh my gosh, my house is going to burn down. If I can't be mobile, then I'm not going to be able to survive this. And so that really was the trigger of me looking at everything to do with ADHD. I'd read all these parenting books, I'd experiment. I was developing patterns to work out what worked for the ADHD brain. And we did some really spectacular failures. Like, I want you to know that there's a lot that doesn't work for ADHD. And then we had some really good successes as well. And we spent over $30,000 like doing all the different therapies and doing all this stuff. And our home life still largely sucked. And you know, if I'm being brutally honest. And so I started really noticing the patterns of what was working, and then went on to credential as a properly trained ADHD coach. And then I started sharing what I'd learned from my experiments, what does work, what doesn't work, and what I'd learned through ADCA, which was just amazing, such an amazing journey. And you know, once I had a few wins, I started snowballing it and started really working. My passion is very much for families, because I think if we can make things easier in that family environment, it has a flow-on effect to everyone. And so that is how I got to how I am. This you know, it's been 15 years, this journey. And you know, I'm really proud that we have now, I think the Functional Family has supported well over 40,000 families.
Wow, that's fantastic. That is absolutely great. So do you think that being a mom of ADHD kids helps you be a better coach?
Oh, 100%. And I've got a slightly different style. You know, every coach that I meet has their own kind of niche. Yeah. And my style is very much, you know, parents and family focused, because I know that the one thing that I'm in shorter supply of is time. These families are rushing, like they have got so much, everything with ADHD takes a little bit longer. And so we are working, I think the stats are 3 times harder than parents of neurotypical kids. So we're working harder, we've got, you know, no time. And so I go for capacity things first. So I'll do environmental changes first to build capacity and give them quick wins so we can do the bigger stuff. Because I know that overloading them with more homework, overloading them with more things that are going to take time is going to overwhelm them. And I want to remove that overwhelm, not increase it. So I think that knowing that and how my family, the intensity that my family throws, that's changed my approach a lot in terms of what I go for first.
Mm-hmm. How do you think kindness comes into being an ADHD coach?
Well, I think it's sprinkled so beautifully throughout, and especially in the training that we do. And the one thing I know for sure is that all my favorite humans in the world have ADHD. Mm-hmm. And I think the beautiful thing is they always show kindness. They always forgive you when I'm making a generalization. I really want people to know that I'm going to make some generalizations here and they can decide whether it applies to their situation. But I have noticed this beautiful trait with people with ADHD is that you can stuff up and you can own it, and they'll be like, oh yeah, like that's fine. Like we're okay, we're good. They're not holding on to things. And kindness is contagious, as you'd know. And so I have these beautiful families that I work with, and you know, I feel like spending time with them makes me happy. It makes them happy, and we also are kind to each other, and we're encouraging each other to be kind to ourselves, which I think is lovely. There's so much value in coaching of really holding space for the people that are in front of you. And, you know, it's a safe place to voice what is going on for them and supporting them to play to their strengths. And I think that all feeds into having capacity for kindness, because once you know what your strengths are and you can see the value and you've got some clear strategies, it creates some beautiful room to help others. And that's what we see so much that comes through when we're supporting our clients.
Yeah, that's what we've found too with ADHD kids. The kids that we're working with is they're just kind. And Anthony was the kindest person that we knew. So I think that you're right that most people with ADHD just have that kindness quality in it. And I just wish that more people could be more kind to the people with ADHD.
Yeah.
So do you have any tips about how people that aren't around ADHD, like how they could be kinder to people with ADHD?
I think that we all want to know what's going on for them because, like, education is our way out of this situation. Because never before have I ever come across a neurological difference or even a medical condition that attracts as many opinions as ADHD. And I mean, imagine swapping out ADHD for another, say like Down syndrome or something. You
Mhm.
would never get that old guy at the barbecue that's telling you how to treat it. Or that, you shouldn't give that child medication. That child needs some discipline. Like
Right.
ADHD it seems to attract a lot of opinions, and a lot of them are just incorrect, outdated, and a lot of them are really targeted to be hurtful. And, we have gone through so much bullying and so much, navigated so many tricky situations for my own kids personally.
Mhm.
And it would just be make it a little bit easier for our gorgeous humans with ADHD if we just knew what's myth, what's the actual facts, and what is going on for them in terms of executive function. We've got these people in the shop, shopping center that feel very inclined to comment on it, tell us
Oh, yeah.
ADHD is real, it's bad parenting, all of these
Right.
things that we cop, which just makes people further isolated and makes them feel more alone. It's not our path out of it. The path out of it is literally what you guys are doing, which is kindness.
Yeah, and what we found too is our family, because we had three older girls, and they didn't behave the way that Anthony did. He was different, but he was a boy, so we said, oh, he's a boy, that's he's just hyperactive, whatever. Um, but even like disciplining him when I was with family members, that I would tell him something and he would say okay, and then 5 minutes later he was doing it again, and they're like, why won't he listen? Why can't you make him listen? And I'm like, I don't know. And this was before he was diagnosed with ADHD, so I really had no idea what was going on. I just knew that it was different. So once we finally did get that diagnosis, it was like, see, he's not just being bad. There was a reason for his behavior. And I think a lot of people that aren't around people with ADHD don't understand that. They think that it's something that they can control without help. And before Anthony had ADHD, I mean, I was one of those people. I'll be honest. When I would see somebody that was misbehaving, I would be like, I wouldn't say anything, but I would think it, and so, I'm sorry, I just got emotional there for a minute. um, so how do you help parents differentiate between typical childhood behavior and signs of ADHD?
So this is one of the trickiest things to navigate, and the question that I get asked a lot. So it's really about the parent recognizing won't from can't, right? So a lot of the time we assume that our child is not behaving because they just don't want to, or they're struggling because they just don't want to. Like they won't, right? And we assume that it's effort, that it's some sort of like you can just try harder out of ADHD symptoms. And as you were talking about discipline before, I was like, if we could discipline ADHD out of our child, like we would have this thing sorted by now, right?
No.
Like this is not the path. It just causes trauma, right? Like when we go
Right.
in really hard. And so my opinion is that no one wants to struggle and fail. There is no child on this planet. There's no human on this planet that's like, wakes up in the morning and goes, I am going to make everyone's life around me hell today. Like I'm going for it. I'm going to just struggle and fail, and I'm going to be dysregulated, and it's going to feel really awful in my body, but I'm going to do it anyway. There's no person on the planet that chooses struggle. And so what we're looking for is, as a parent of children with ADHD, is really about skills, because when someone isn't able to succeed, because the human nature is to take the easy road. So if they're not taking the easy road, it suggests a skill shortage. And so we're looking at executive function skills now. And when we know that these things are impaired with ADHD. and everyone's very unique in terms of their presentations and which ones are impaired the most. But we're looking at it like a skill shortage. And the good news is that skills can be taught and supported. Like that's what we're doing. That's what our jobs are. And an ADHD coaches are, to be able to support them to develop skills and develop strategies around those skills which are that are more challenging for them. And so if you are looking at your child's behavior and you're thinking, oh my gosh, they're manipulating me, or they're doing this because they're lazy, or they just don't want to, and you're not sure if it's a can't, I would err on the side of can't. Because most of the time, our kids with ADHD develop this bravado or develop these coping mechanisms to cover up the skill shortage. And they try and control the situation. Lots of coping mechanisms, which are just there to keep them safe, essentially. So if you're not sure, go with can't. It's a school shortage. It's a skill shortage, and we just need to support them. I've got this beautiful analogy of ADHD. Do you mind if I share it with you now?
No, please do.
So this is how I kind of view ADHD. It's a little bit like Spider-Man, and I like this one because you can explain it to your kids. So Spider-Man, he gets the ability to web. Like he gets the webbing thing, and at the start, he's just a bit chaotic with it. He webs himself, he can't control it. He knows he's got this skill, but it's a bit chaotic. And so he goes away to an industrial area and he practices it till he can use it to his advantage. Now, once he's nailed it, it's now it's a strength, it's a gift, it's something that benefits his life. And that is how I view ADHD. It can web you any day of the week. Everyone, like lots of people do it. But when you develop skills and the right structure around it that works for you uniquely, you can use it to your advantage. And we can see that reflected by how many truly successful people have ADHD. And it's people that have supported, their skills and strengths so that they can achieve great things.
That's fantastic. I love that. That's a good thing to know. So one of the things as a parent, when you're trying to be with your child with ADHD and they're misbehaving or whatever, and you get frustrated and angry and stuff, how can you bring yourself out of that, like to try to be without, to be kind, because you don't want to be upset with the child, but you want to be kind anyway. So how do you get back in the mindset of doing something like that?
So I think when we're talking about parenting, and I want to acknowledge that it is so hard. Like I, literally do this all day, every day for a job, and then turn around and get triggered by my own kids. It's so ridiculous. And I'm also saying to them, like, I do this for a living. Like, and they're like, don't ADHD coach me, mum. Like, they are onto me, right? But nothing will trigger you like your own kids. And the reason that it does is because you love them. Like, you want the best for them. You don't want to see them struggle. Everything has got these emotional stories about it. And plus, we're kind of like bringing all the stuff that we've bought from when we were parented. Right. And we're coming to it from, I don't know about you guys, but when we had big emotions when we were growing up, it was go to your room, sort that out. We were told, that's not acceptable here. You go and do that somewhere else. You have a big emotion, you take it away. And we averted, we took our eye contact away. We didn't turn towards, and this is a really beautiful thing to write down if you're listening to this, is we turn towards behavior with compassion rather than turning away from it with judgment. So turn towards it with compassion rather than turning away from it with judgment. And that is really tricky for parents to navigate because we weren't parented like that. And it is really changing up our whole approach. So how can a parent, what can they do? We need to regulate us first. Dysregulation is also contagious. We talked about kindness being contagious before. Well, so is dysregulation. If you come at your child dysregulated, you make them more dysregulated. If they're up here and you meet them up here, well then we just keep going. And we know how far it can go. Yeah. We're parenting kids with ADHD.
Found that out. Yeah.
Yes. And it's not about, there is this thing from how we were parented of trying to break them a little bit. We will outmatch you. Right. They
Right.
will
I'm in
not be
charge.
open.
I'm the one
Yeah,
that's in charge. You do what I say and you do what I do, and and you don't go away,
don't question it.
you don't go away from that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
And
totally different.
this is now how we see parents are really confused because we start off, we've been told like gentle parenting, right? So we start off being gentle. So we go, okay, so tell me a little bit about what's your feelings about this. And then that doesn't work. So then we flip to strict parenting and we're like, you do this because I say so. And then we default to how we were parented, and parents are really confused at how to handle these behaviors. And we're flip-flopping, and all we're saying to our kids is we're not quite sure what we're doing. And our kids with oppositional behaviors will take that window and they will escalate. So I really want parents to be really clear on what those strategies are. So if you're going to go with one thing, it is, when it comes to ADHD, and we know our kids are connection kids, it is lead with connection and curiosity always. Now, if that means your first thing that comes out of your mouth, so this is a really little takeaway here, the first word that you say is always your breath. Unless there's safety involved and they're about to get injured, right, the first thing that comes out is your breath. You take a big breath in and a big breath out to regulate yourself first. Otherwise, you'll notice what comes out of your mouth is venom. Like if I go with what my brain wants to go with in that moment, as they've just, pushed their brother down the stairs or whatever, it's venom. It's venom. I'm like, why did you do that? Oh my gosh.
Now, why did you do that?
Yeah. They don't know.
They don't know.
They don't know.
Because and so
if they knew, they'd stop it, because no one chooses to struggle, right?
Right.
So what we want to do is, first thing is breath. The next one is to lead with connection and curiosity. So we go with what I'd call an open brain strategy, like something that's going to bring it back to open rather than locking it up. So we go with something like, hey, I can see that, that you're really struggling. Can you tell me what's going on for you? Now, if they're dysregulated, they're not going to give you anything. So sometimes the best thing after you take that breath is to give them a bit of space. Because once they're regulated, then you can have that discussion and, really try and coach them out of it. Now, I'm not talking about this when it's a safety situation. When it's a safety situation, all bets are off, do whatever you need to do. Now, when they're dysregulated, and they're in that red zone, the only strategy we have is move them and you to safety. There's no strategy. It's too late. Their brain's offline. There's no strategy for that time, right? So the parents that get down and start talking to their kids and coaching them through that, then the child's not taking any of that in. They're completely in fight or flight, wasting your own time, right? So you're better off just letting it play out. And the good news is people with ADHD cycle through their emotions really fast. You don't have to wait that long. Before you know it, they're like, oh yeah, that was like 10 minutes ago. I've forgotten about that. So you can wait it out for some of those things. But my takeaway here, and I know we've jumped around a little bit, is that really we want to have confidence. We want to have confidence because if you're set, if you've got a playbook on how you tackle situations and okay, they're dysregulated, we leave it, go to safety, right? If they're here, we can throw in a strategy. Like we want to have this confidence so that parents aren't flip-flopping and we're just giving our kids the impression that we don't really know what we're doing and we're winging it. And our kids are too smart for that. As you know, they're way too clever.
Right. Well, all I can say is when Anthony was diagnosed 20 years ago, I would have loved to have had a coach, an ADHD coach, and especially a family coach, because not all of the ADHD coaches are family coaches. A lot of them just coach the child. And I think that coaching the family is so important because not only do the parents need to know how to help their child, but the siblings need to know how to as well, especially those siblings that don't have ADHD, because that leads into a lot of sibling rivalry when one of them is being disciplined differently than another one, like, why aren't you disciplining him, blah, 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 this way, so do you have any tips for parents, like when that happens?
I mean, we know that sibling conflict is the number one in my community here in Australia, the number one requested topic that people want to talk about. Mm-hmm. Now, it's made more intense by the fact that when we strength test most people with ADHD, their sense of fairness and justice is very high. It's usually right up there in the top 5, right? So that love of learning usually comes in, kindness usually comes in, and sense of fairness and justice comes in when we're strength testing, usually. Usually, I'm just generalizing here. And so our perception of fairness and things being the same is very important. The problem is that perceptions are just that, right? Our children aren't looking at it from a parent's viewpoint. They're looking at it from their viewpoint. And when you're young, you've only got your viewpoint. You don't have any other experiences to compare it to.
Right.
And the same for our siblings. Our siblings are looking at one kid getting this, getting extra attention, they're getting left out, and feeling, feeling like they're not getting the same amount of their parents' attention. And it is tricky to navigate. And I do think there is this kind of feeling of parents to keep trying to have these beautiful family days out. We're all seeing it on Instagram. There's that family that's like walking in the park and they're laughing, and like, that is not my family, right? We're walking through the park, someone's running off, someone's hit someone, like we're just not going to be that. So take your family for what it is. It doesn't mean it's always going to be like that, right? But we're going to put your family in positions where they shine. Now, I can tell you right now that my family do not shine in the grocery shop or in the mall, right? We're not shining there. We're crying, we want everything, we're dysregulated, the lights are too bright, we're not shining. So I'm not going to put my family in that situation if I don't have to, until they have the skills to be able to support themselves in that environment. If you see me in there, please know something has gone very wrong. Same, sitting quietly at a restaurant. My kids aren't going to sit quietly at a restaurant. I'm not going to put them in that position till they're older and they've developed some skills around it. Because if you keep putting them in situations where they can't show their strengths, while they don't have the skills around it, you're setting yourself up for failure. Like you sit at a restaurant, mum's crying, why does so-and-so, like, why are we rolling around on the floor? Knowing where your family shine. Now, I can tell you where my family does shine. Obstacle courses, escape rooms, puzzle places, where you don't do those puzzles, like high energy activity, motocross, all of these things. That's where my family shine. So if I want to go as a family activity, I'm putting them in positions where we can see their strengths and we can see how they can truly be together as a family. We're not adding environmental pressure. Then I'd really love to say to parents, when we're talking about sibling conflict, is that having one-on-one time with your child is super important. Because now, when I say this, I'm going to hear parents go, oh my God, I don't have time for that, right? But I can tell you, these are micro moments. So when you're making the lunches in the morning for school, having one child sit up on the bench, and as you're working, just, giving them your attention and asking them a little bit about what they're interested in. Mm-hmm. Now, the great news is our kids with ADHD are usually very interested in like amazing things, right? So let's just chat and have that little micro moment. When you say goodbye to them, have that moment where you hold their eye contact and you go like, I love you, you're amazing. Just hold it for a little bit longer than you're probably comfortable with, if your child's comfortable with eye contact. But what we're doing is just creating these little micro moments for each child. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be a weekend away. We don't have time for that, right? It can be a little, like a trip to the shop to get a milkshake. It can be where you're just shining your light on that particular child. Now that fills their emotional bucket, and it also takes them away from like the sibling dynamic. Because if I take all three of my boys out, it's a full-scale military deployment, right? Like it's a big thing, and sometimes it cannot be as successful. Sometimes it's successful and sometimes it's not. But when you just have those little micro moments and you fill each child's cup with those little micro moments, they're much less likely to have that conflict. We also have quite a funny strategy in our house when things are getting escalated. This is so typically my family, and you might laugh at it. It's pretty rude because I've got 3 boys. But when it's escalating and they are fighting, it's kind of like a safe word, but anyone can throw a bomb, right? Anyone can throw a bomb, and when you throw a bomb, everyone has to scatter. Mm-hmm. And then, because I have 3 boys, they made it a fart bomb, right? So they throw the bomb and everyone has to scatter. And what that does is that action of scattering, like throwing the bomb, scattering, just gives them a little bit of time so that they can get away from each other and not like break up that fight. Mm-hmm. And then they can come back together. So we're just using the power of the pause, but we're using it via a fart bomb. And please stop comparing your family to other families. Like that is just so unhelpful, and it's been made worse by social media, I think, because there's no one right way to do family life. Like if your kids can't sit at the dinner table and have a nice family dinner together, who cares? Do we even care about that anymore? Like, why are we enforcing that if it doesn't work? Maybe what your family life looks a little bit different for now, and that's okay. Our kids grow up, they develop new skills, they're changing all the time, and so we get to control what works for our family. We get to control. We're literally the boss now. How cool is that? Like, we get to decide, and whatever that looks like for you is okay.
Yeah. So one of the other things I want to talk about is sorry, the word just went right out of my head. Because the ADHD kids, from the time they're born, pretty much, they're hearing a lot of negative. And even at home, and I'm sorry to say this, but when I didn't know, what better to do, Anthony probably got a lot of negative from us too. So by the time he was in second grade, his self-esteem had really gone in the toilet, to the point where he didn't want to be here anymore. And that was a devastating day for us. And I know that a lot of ADHD kids suffer with self-esteem issues, and the parents can be kind to the child, but Anthony would always tell us, well, you're my parent, you have to say that, you have to be nice to me or whatever. But how can parents of an ADHD child, how can they foster self-compassion and resilience, and really help that child bring their self-esteem up if it has gone down?
I think it's really important to have a good psychologist in your child's corner. Now, when I say this, like, I'm going to go through some strategies as well. But when I say this, a good psychologist that your child enjoys seeing. Don't make them go to one that they don't want to go to, right? So find the right one that uses play-based therapy, that's super active, that's, or have a look at equine therapy, because there's a lot of kids that I work with that have, that's a side door therapy. It's not confrontational. You're looking after the horse, but my gosh, there's some really great results coming out of equine therapy. So we want to have that on the team, because these are the guys that are trained for that. But I also think at home, the best thing that we can do is to stuff up, right? We stuff up and we fail and we say the wrong thing, and we might say, put our child down, or just do endless corrections or whatever it is. Because I want people to know I do this every day. Like, I do it. But the best thing we can do is to say to our child, oh my gosh, oh no, like, I'm so sorry. Like, that was wild, that car trip. I'm so sorry that came out of my mouth and that I did that. Because what we're teaching our child is that they can stuff up and that everything's figure outable, that they can own it, and then we're modeling that kind of resilience and self-compassion, and and we're giving a voice to what is going on for us. Like, I always like to give my kids a bit of context. I'm like, I did not sleep well last night. That thing that just happened there, that was whoa, right? I'm modeling it because I want my kids, when they stuff up, and that's going to happen a lot. They are going to make spectacular failures. I want them to know that they can come back from it, that they can own it, and they can have a bit of self-compassion, and they can make it right again. And I think when it comes to ADHD and black and white thinking, they're either good or bad, they're on or off. They're really, really set in their mindset a lot. And I want to model that that's not always the case. Life isn't black or white. You're not good or bad. Life mostly sits in the gray. People are a little bit good, right, a little bit bad.
Oh, right.
Like, people are, like, we're sitting in the gray. And so I think when it comes to supporting their self-esteem, really modeling that no one's perfect, and that we can make mistakes, and that it's okay, and that we're all learning. I love the saying, you either win or you learn, right? You win or you learn. Because
right.
And this is how our kids with ADHD learn. They learn really well through natural consequences. And so they don't learn because we told them so. We don't tell them learn because we told them to do it this way. They learn because of natural consequences. And so letting them have that space, and then knowing that we're here, we've got their back, And, you know, say like at school when they make a silly mistake or whatever, and you're in that principal's office, and, you know, I've sat there lots, and,
have to.
you know, you're in
to.
there. The first time, you know, you want to go in and go, what on earth did you do? Like, oh my gosh, this is so embarrassing. But instead, what I do is I walk up before I put my hand up to the principal for a minute. I just say, just give me 1 second. And what I do is I put my arm around my child and I whisper in their ear, I've got you. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, what that means is not that I'm going to get them out of the consequence. Right. I'm not doing that. I'm not saving them from the consequence. They are going to own their actions. But what I want them to know is that they're safe, that I'm going to back them up, and that our love is more important than whatever's going on in that school environment. That I'm assuming that they did whatever they did because they're struggling with something. And so it is a little moment of connection before we brace for impact for whatever truly ridiculous thing my child has done in that stage. And I want you to know that they do a lot. But it's that connection, and that they can spectacularly fail and they can come back from it. Because I think that once you know that you can safely fail and you can learn by natural consequences, that has a positive impact on your self-image, because you're like, it's not all black and white. Mm-hmm. And then I also wanted to flag this, and this is a bit emotional, but I know that we've had some really beautiful discussions about this. In Australia, there's a course called the Accidental Counsellor. It's run by Lifeline, which is our suicide hotline. Okay. And it's a great course for parents to take. And the reason that I like it is a lot of parents feel like they can't talk about self-harm and suicide. They feel like they have to skirt around it. Like, now we've had the same things happen in our house in terms of discussions of not wanting to be here anymore. And, you know, we've had to support them through that. And it's so hard. Parents don't know, they don't want to say the word. They don't want to, they feel like if they say suicide that they'll be giving them an idea. Right? That is, I want to say that is fundamentally not true. You can talk about suicide. You can ask them if they have an intention of self-harm. Talking about these things doesn't make it any more likely. What it does is shine a light on what they might be feeling and open a dialogue for it. Mm-hmm. So, you know, if you're listening to this and you don't feel like you have the skills for supporting those kind of conversations, you know, number one, we get a psychologist. Number two, we do that accidental counsellor course, because it can really support us to navigate those conversations and help our kids move through some of those. Yeah.
So Anthony, his self-esteem suffered, but then my husband Tony got him and Gabriella into martial arts. And so by the time he was 12, he had his black belt. So then that gave him confidence. And then as we worked with his learning disabilities and he got better and better and better, then his confidence did come back. And so by the time he was a senior in high school, you know, he was good to go. And so suicide was never on our card. You know, it was never there. It was never something that was supposed to happen. So we know that it was his impulsiveness that caused that, unfortunately. That was the one thing that we could never get a hold of. But so do you think that it's important? One of the things that we're trying to do is with the coaches is encourage the kids to find what they love to do, like find something they're good at and find something that they're loved to do. Do you think that's helpful?
Oh my goodness, so much. Like, you've got to have your thing, right? And like, you know, and especially if your child struggles socially and perhaps they have some troubles with friendship groups at school, and you know, we know a lot of our kids miss social cues and struggle to navigate social skills. Give them the thing, right? Like, and usually for a lot of the kids that I work with, it's got to be a little bit edgy. It's got to be a little bit dangerous. It's not going to be knitting, guys. Like, it's got to be something, well, not for everyone.
Snowboarding.
It's got to be something like martial arts. It's got to be snowboarding. Like, for my kids, it's motocross and surfing and all the things that are going to make my nervous system very elevated. But we want them to have a thing, and we want them to have something that they like. And even better if it's not just video games, right? The video games, I'm okay with technology, but like even if it's something else, because we want them to draw their confidence and self-esteem, just like Anthony did through martial arts, through something else, and connect with other people, let other people see how good they are at stuff. Mm-hmm. And, you know, if your child is having trouble finding their thing, because I often hear that from parents, let them try things on for size. Let them try. Like I get a lot of people saying, but my kid, like, it does this for 2 weeks and then they don't like this anymore. And let them go. Let them do that. Often explain the situation to the provider. Let them have a 2-week trial or whatever it is. Let them try things on for size, because often they won't know about who's in the cohort, the other kids going through. They won't know how they'll feel until they get there. A lot of our kids have trouble anticipating what situations are going to be like. So let them experience it and then let them find the thing. And once they find their thing, hook into it and really praise. Like I have one child who's not very comfortable with verbal praise, right? So that we've got to know how our child is comfortable receiving praise. So, hand gestures, touch, often writing things on our wall, things that they're good at is all really great. But what I do is I just do a lot of fake phone calls to my mum. So I just do fake phone calls and I'm like, hey mum, oh my gosh, you should have seen him on the motocross track. Like, he was amazing. Like, and I just say how good he was at whatever it is, and he's overhearing it. Now, he would never be comfortable with me just going, like, if I gave him that verbal praise, he would argue with me about why he's not the best. But when I'm talking to someone else and he's overhearing how special I think he is at that thing, that is when he will take it in. You can see his little face beam. So, know how your child receives praise too, because for some children, it's not direct praise. They can't take it. So it's interesting to notice.
So I'm just amazed by everything that you do. You wear so many hats in any given day. So how do you find time for yourself? Like, what do you do to find time for yourself?
It's such a great question. And I can't say that it's something I've always done very well. I was in the early days of our family. I've got a nearly 16-year-old, an 11-year-old, and a 10-year-old now. And in the early days, my strategy was do everyone's executive function for them. So they all had executive function and I was just holding everyone up, right? I was just propping them up. And that's it's not a great way to live, to be honest. It's not sustainable. So if you're a parent, you're feeling like you're doing all of that executive function, that's a good sign that we need some scaffolding for your family, because it's something you can do for a short time, but you'll probably end up burning yourself out as well, especially if you have ADHD yourself. We want to make sure that we're really focusing on those skills and environmental changes. But I think for me now, what I had to get to, and maybe it was the diagnosis of my own autoimmune condition that really swapped that, was really swapping from, okay, now I need to work out a way that we can support them to be able to do some of these things independently. Now, not right now, my kids are still little, right? But we're working towards some of these things being done independently to buy me a little bit more time. I would also say, in terms of parents and how they look after themselves, is do not ride the roller coaster of emotions with them. Like, separate yourself from that.
That's hard.
It's so
hard.
And to be honest, if I'm going to be really frank, and I don't even do that with my husband, because he cycles through emotions. Like, he'll come through because he's ADHD, and he'll come through and be like, I had this thing at work today, and like this happened, and like, if I rode that roller coaster with him, that would be exhausting on my nervous system. So instead, I listen. I don't offer any advice. I ask them some compassionate questions about it, but I'm not jumping in that cart with him riding that roller, because you bet in 1 hour I'll be like, so what do you think about that guy? And he'd be like, oh no, that was an hour ago. Like, it will be fine. It's fine. Like, he just had to process it out of their system. So don't feel like you have to ride that roller coaster. And taking time for yourself. I mean, I used to be riddled with mum guilt every time I left. I'd be like thinking of all the things I should do. But mum guilt is really gross. It robs us and undercuts us of our worth, right? We do so much for everyone else.
I know.
I know. Like, why are we doing this to ourselves?
Because we want everybody to be okay.
Yes, but the problem is that's not in our control.
Then we're not okay. I know.
Yes. We're so focused on, I'll be happy when they're in school. I'll be happy when they're out of school. I'll be happy when they have a job. When are we going to be happy, guys? Like, the only time we've got is now. So I don't buy into that anymore. Now I'm very unapologetic that I'm putting myself first. I am taking what I need first, because I do so much for everyone else, and I can't do it if I don't have capacity. So when I work, I work, and when I rest, I really rest. I'm unapologetic about that now. And I think that's been one of the benefits of having my diagnosis, because I think that I'm like, well, it's just how it is. And I really don't beat myself up about the things that I can't anymore.
Right.
Yeah, I can't control.
Yeah. That is tough. That's, as a mother, as a mother of children that don't have ADHD, it's you're always feeling guilty about something, and it really is hard to break out of that. Fortunately, we had a very good psychiatrist for Anthony, and we did family sessions with him as well. So that's how we learned about things. But with our holistic model, we are not the experts. You are an expert, but we are not an expert. So that's with our system, we try to bring all the experts to our kids so that they get all the help that they need, and so that it's not one person trying to wear 500 hats. So do you think that's helpful?
Oh my gosh, like if I had what you guys offer. Like when my first son was diagnosed, we walked out of that. Now, we'd waited over a year for that appointment. We walked out of that appointment with a photocopied pamphlet about ADHD. Like it was a one double-sided page. And I was like, hey, when is like the health or strategy coming, guys? Like I've waited for a year for this. Like we are literally at breaking point. I cried in the car on the way home because I was like, I've waited for this. And what is... Like other than medication, which we know can be life-changing for a lot of people, but it still doesn't give you the skills, right?
Right.
So we walked out and I was like, what the actual, like, what are my kids on the roof? Like, how can we survive this? I don't have the skills, right? And so what you guys offer is you connect them with people who can help the parents develop the skills, the child develop the skills, but also because you have such beautiful lived experience and you have real heart for why you're doing what you're doing, which I just cannot commend you on more highly, because it takes a special sort of person to go through what you've gone through and then turn around and go, well, I'm going to help others. And that is special. But to have someone be able to hold your hand as you go through that moment. So, think about, 10 years, 15 years ago, Sharon sitting there crying in the car, like to be able to support that person when they need it and have someone there with that little bit of hope that it can, there's help, support. Because I didn't even know what was available. Most people don't know. They don't know what the difference between a psychiatrist, developmental ped, a coach, a psychologist. Not a lot of people know all the differences. And so they're putting money, and plus there's like Facebook ads for all sorts of weird snake oil about ADHD all over the place. But they don't have anyone to guide them.
Right.
And I think that in itself provides hope. It provides a clear pathway. And, the Road to Kindness is a beautiful name because that's exactly what people need. They need a road, they need a map. And I think it could support, and it would have saved so much, wasted energy, money, experiments in our household too.
Yeah. So what, if you had one piece of, not advice, but what's one message of hope that you would like families to hear about raising kids with ADHD?
I think the one thing that I'd like to say is there's no right way to do life, right? People do life in all their different ways. So I want to empower parents to really know that there is hope, right? That it might not look like Joe Blow down the street, but there is hope for them. There is beautiful support for them. One thing I do want to say is that we can, if I'm going to leave them with one tip, is to just be there for your kids and lead with curiosity always. And we want to just go, I wonder what's going on for them in this moment. And you do not have to be perfect. You do not have to have all the right answers. Because what our kids need, they don't need perfect parents. They don't need it. They're not
going to get them.
Yeah, they're not going to get them. They're not in my house. They ain't going to get them. But what they do need is people that are there, have got their back. And you guys are already doing that. Like if you're watching, my guess is, if you're watching a YouTube clip about this, you've already got this nailed. You've already you're already doing it. It's nothing that you have to do that's extra.
That's why I love how there was nothing there for you, so you created it. And you did it, for your family. We created it 20 years later, but we're all of us people who are trying to help people with ADHD. We're all in it together, and we all understand the challenges that come with it. And a lot of people don't understand the challenges that come with, being ADHD or having a child with ADHD. And that's been very hard to get across to people, because they just don't think that it's something that's very important. And it's really hard educating them. But I'm happy that we have podcasts, and there's a lot of experts that are on social media and things now. So there's a lot of verbal help now instead of just the reading help. I think that's all I have for you. Was there anything else that you would like to bring up? Anything else that you can think of?
I just want to say thank you so much for the work that you're doing. Like, it is inspirational and so needed. And I think that, if anyone hasn't told you lately, thank you. Thank you for doing what you're doing, because I work with adults and that tell me of the pain that they've gone through. And my own husband has, wears that trauma, every day still. And, this is so needed. And you guys are doing it for 100% the most beautiful reason of all. So thank you. Thank you.
Well, give your kids a hug. And how can people find you?
So there's a few different ways. So you can check out our website, thefunctionalfamily.com. We've also got the ADHD Families podcast. That's a great one to go and listen to the episode where Tony and Cassie are on, because it is a wonderful episode. And also YouTube, socials at The Functional Family. Go in, find us, get involved. I've got a free support group, free podcast, all of the things that is there. The help is there. Your tribe is there. So, just as what you guys are doing, we want to make sure that people know that we exist, so that they know that there is tools out there to support them.
Yeah, that's what I had seen your social media presence before we met, and that's what when we found out that that we were going to actually get to talk to you, we were so excited because we wanted to find out more about what you do. So give your kids a hug from us if they like to be hugged, and give yourself a big hug, and I'll give myself a big hug. And but I just want to read something. When parenting a child with ADHD, kindness isn't just a virtue, it's a lifeline. Gentle understanding, especially on the hard days, reminds your child that they are more than their challenges, and just as important to be kind to yourself. Your patience, persistence, and love are shaping a future full of potential. Today is the best day of your life, and tomorrow will be even better. And we hope that you have a kind day. Thank you so much, Sharon. Can't thank you enough for being on with us today, and I hope we get to be together again.
Thank you. Always happy to do what I can to support you guys and share your beautiful message.
Thank you.
Thank you for spending time with us today.
If you like today's episode, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who could use the information. And remember, a little bit of kindness goes a long way, especially for those kids with ADHD. See you next time.